So welcome to Dermaplaning Watch and Learn. I'm Suzanne and this is Maylene.
Hello.
And being live on YouTube, we won't be able to hear anything on your end. So please use the chat if anything comes up. Doreen, as you see in the chat, is going to help us to monitor the chat as you go through. We will save a time for Q&A, but we're going to readjust the camera so you can actually see what we're doing. Well, Maylene's going to do it, and we're going to both be talking through it today, okay? Reminder that this is just a demo. It's not a technical training per se. So, but we are going to talk about some little tips and things to go through, and we hope you enjoy. So we're going to get started. Get you to zoom that in, Maylene, and then we will begin. All right, so as Maylene is getting settled, I'm going to just go through the agenda today. I'll just move right out of it. Everybody's okay. All right, so Mayleen's going to be just cleansing right now, and you're using a milk cleanser?
Cleansing jelly.
Cleansing jelly. So ideal skin types through dermaplaning. And I'm just going to do a check. Can you guys hear me okay? Perfect. Thank you for letting me know. Okay, so ideal skin types are your normal to dry. Just watching how dry they are, rough textures, that type of thing. Mature skins, and just watch potential irritations about your consultations with them, whether they've been doing chemical peels or using retinols at home or any kind of AHAs at home. Sensitive skin, when stable, you're able to do dermaplaning. Just keep in mind, just think about, this is an exfoliation. I know it's about removing vellus hair, but it is an exfoliation. So how would you actually determine if a person could have an exfoliation done? So that's one way to look at it. So long as the barrier of the skin is not inflamed or super sensitive, no breakouts, that type of thing. So really the primary goal of dermaplaning is that surface exfoliation to find that smoothness in the skin, improve the texture, so we're reducing a little bit of the roughness or maybe unevenness, build up that can interfere sometimes with other treatments, enhance the product penetration as well. So it's going to allow that ingredient to absorb a lot more effectively. And another big one is the makeup application before a special event. So think of brides or weddings, that type of thing, or anybody's special event, really. And then some people actually use it, or some professionals use it as a pre-treatment preparation to other advanced facial treatments or clinical treatments. But again, just watch the wait time. So if you are looking at wanting to do a chemical peel, but it's not ideal a lot of times to do a chemical peel right after dermaplaning. We'll get into that a little bit more as we go through. So where are we at, Maylene?
So I've just cleansed and prepped the skin. I'm applying the oil now, which is what I'm going to be using to dermaplane with.
And we'll get into the difference of wet and dry after, but this is how Maylene likes to do it. I personally am the same way. So as she's going to start, just talking really quick, it's really about the vellus hair that we're removing. That's probably the first reason why people do dermaplaning, and the bonus is the exfoliation out of it. The other thing is to consider if there's any terminal hair, the stronger hairs, is there hormone imbalances, This isn't quite the right procedure to be working on people that have a lot of stronger hairs. I would say that's probably for a technician that's very experienced with dermaplaning. I'm not going to say that it's a no, but you definitely want to be watching what area you're working on and what to avoid, because sometimes there's ingrown hairs and you don't want the blade to go over top of it. So just important professional considerations is remember to think of the barrier health of the skin, the sensitivity levels of the skin, any current skin using of retinols, exfoliation, or acids, that type of thing. Recent professional treatments, make sure, as a reminder, ask your clients, because we know they're not just seeing us ourselves. Some of them are jumping around to other professionals and they don't like to tell you what's happening, sometimes do. They just don't want to offend you. And the other thing is any active skin conditions. Again, I think if you think of it as an exfoliation first, then you know if you can proceed with it. All right, so mechanical exfoliation, I think Malene's going to show you how to
apply the blade.
Yep. So we always store ours in a sterile bag so that while you're setting up or you're setting up ahead, it's in a clean environment.
So I like to open mine kind of halfway, keep the sharp part inside, and then I line up and make sure that the slanted part matches the slanted part, so then it can slide in there properly. So then I just flick it into place.
Partway through, good.
All right.
Yeah, there you go.
And then I like to start on the forehead, so that's where I'm gonna.
Yep. Okay. So what we thought about together on this one was to talk about pressure, angles. What are you working on? Checking in with your client, how it's feeling. I think forehead's probably one of the easier ones to do. Would you agree, Millie?
Yeah, I think it's easier because it's just kind of more of the tauter area of the skin. It's flat usually. It's just a little bit easier to maneuver.
There's usually not a lot of bumps. When you wipe off, maybe show them what you're getting. One other little thing as she's going through this is some people feel, because they're tampering with the hair, that will it increase hair growth? Vellus hair will not be increased by doing this because you're not tampering at the root of the hair. Unless there's hormonal imbalances, then potentially yes, it could be. Just remember to turn the head. The reason that some people feel that it's stronger is because it's like shaving, so it's a blunt cut to the hair, so it feels like stubble, but it's not doing anything at the root or the base of the hair. There's different blades that you can choose from. You know, Maylene and I were talking about this, and Vanessa as well. Like, we all like the 10R just because it's rounded and not that sharp edge. I know sometimes technicians that do this quite often, they don't find it as, I guess, stressful to use because of the edge. They actually prefer it. But I would say with an experienced technician, then you're probably safe with either one. Just being mindful, especially around the nose, just under the nose as well. It's also really great for doing eyebrows. So we're doing this live to give you an idea how quickly you can work through. We'll pause before going to the next side. I think, Milene, you said that you like to do the whole forehead and the eyebrow area.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I kind of split it up into just the forehead on its own. Usually go one side and then the other. And then I kind of like to go back and touch up the brows and just make it a little bit more defined. And that's everything we got off the forehead. And lift you and turn you.
Okay, moving on. So let's talk about the next step. When you get into this area, what are you looking for when you're doing this?
Making sure that you're kind of separating where there are lines and areas that you kind of have to manipulate or move the skin to create a flatter surface. Of course, always looking out for any type of bumps or anything, which we examined at the beginning. I'm just going to avoid this little spot here. I don't know if you can see it. Just it's a little bit inflamed. I don't want to disrupt it anymore, so I'm just going to avoid that one area. Other than that, do you have anything to add? Okay. How's that pressure?
Oh. On the sides, you're going to see a lot more. So really the key behind dermaplaning is your angle, the pressure you're working with, the stroke direction, and you want to follow the natural facial contours and maintain consistent, gentle pressure even. So if you're newer to dermaplaning, just move in smaller areas. But as you become more experienced, you'll find that you'll be able to flow through it quite quickly. But speed is not necessarily the best option because you can't always control your pressure, your angles, the evenness of the blade flat to the skin as well. You don't want to rush your strokes as well. This will avoid sometimes that friction or what's known as razor burn.
And I'm kind of just readjusting my hands to ensure that the skin is pulled taut throughout the whole thing. So sometimes you have to stop and adjust a little bit.
Is there anything that you can remember from, I know it's a while ago when you were first trained in this, to where you are today? Any tips you would give them?
Practice and confidence, which comes with practice, but other
really
than
what
that,
it is. Yeah, it's true.
Also, I think stopping and thinking about what you're doing and what your next move is helps you from kind of just going in blindly. But
Right.
if you stop and think, why am I moving this, or what?
Where you're going next, you don't
Yeah.
miss the fine lines.
Yeah, exactly.
I think that's probably one of the complaints that maybe we've heard from clients is that there's little areas that can be missed. So being vellus hair, you want to watch for your angles of lighting, and then you need to maneuver yourself to keep looking at the angles. Again, adjusting as you're going, you'll have to keep that non-dominant hand chasing that hand with the tool so that you keep that nice taut skin. So if you're dealing with anyone with even just genetic elasticities loose, then you need to ensure that you keep that your hand.
Top, bottom up.
So if you do this maneuver of having the client tighten the lip, remind them to stay tight, not to move. If they need a moment, they have to give you a chance. So ask them, say, you'll lift your hands off the skin if you're removing the blade. Then they'll know, or they can put their finger up. You don't want them talking at this point for safety. The other thing too is you sometimes can reduce or release the pressure based on how sensitive the skin is or how tight the skin is. I know some technicians like to do a cleanse with their hands first so they can feel any roughness to the skin, because once the gloves are on, it's sometimes hard to detect that. So try to do that prior to as well. And then really keeping everything clean and safe by using gloves on both hands, important. It is a lot easier in a sense to do a younger skin because usually their skin is quite taut. So just keep that in mind. If you're always doing a younger clientele and you get someone with that elasticity a little looser, whether it's age or genetic, then you want to keep in mind that you'll need to keep that skin taut. So you can see even with Maylene's hand, she's not having to pull the skin much at all. We'll talk a little bit about dry versus wet as Maylene's moving through this. Really, it's going to come down to probably skin type as well. So if they have oily skin, you might have enough slickness to the skin in order to do this. Now, depending where you're located, your bylaws might say you have to do a sweep of an alcohol-based cleanse and do it dry. So of course you have to follow the protocols of your province or your state, or sometimes it's your municipality as well. When it comes to wet, usually picking an oil, sometimes it's a gel. Even some people are using a serum, but I find, the serum, you're just going to keep taking it off the skin. Ideally, a good serum would be used after so it penetrates. But it's up to you for cost effectiveness of what you want to do.
Okay, taking that.
I think the three of us here have said, so Vanessa's our model, but she's also a technician. We've all said that we prefer doing a wet treatment over a dry. I think part of it too could be the climate we live in. We're in Alberta, Edmonton, and so we're always dry out here. So it gives a little more slip to the skin when we're working with wet. The other thing, when you're doing an oil cleanser, it's easy to come off after because depending on the brand you're using, you just follow the technique to remove it. So the one that we're using is from Bernard Cassier. I think Maylene explained to me why she prefers this one. We're lucky we have a few options, but this is one that she likes to use. If you want to explain a little bit why you prefer your Bernard Cassier oil.
Yeah, I find it's light enough, but thick where I can get a good grip without slipping.
Right, some oils are really oily.
Yeah.
And that's when you see people use a gauze on their other hand to hold the skin taut.
Yeah, and I'm still able to get that pull without my fingers slipping through. Mm-hmm. So
really so whatever your skincare line that you're using, talk to your brand educator or your distributor to find out if they have recommendations for you. So consider climate, where you live, whether humidity or dry will also influence it.
So once I've kind of covered all my areas, I just rotate the client's head and really take a look and make sure I didn't miss any spots. Feeling also helps, but depending how thick or fine their hair is, you might not be able to tell that way. So lighting and angles really makes the difference to be aware of that.
So it's common too to have the flushing of the skin Again, this does stimulate the skin. So just checking in with your client if you start seeing redness. Then
How's everything
afterwards,
feeling?
whenever you're finished,
How's everything feeling?
Everything's good.
then you can decide afterwards. I know some places are not doing any treatments after. This is all they do. They remove and then just apply a cream and off they go. This is an optimum time for the skin to penetrate product, nothing too big and active, but soothing, calming, hydrating is always a good key to use. So on this one, it's just adding water to remove. You can see it can be a very quick procedure. That does come, as Maylene mentioned, with practice. You'll increase your technique, so doing it a few times a week if you can, or at least once a week. What do you ladies say? That's probably the best way to keep going if you can.
Yeah, I think if you take too long of a break, you just kind of have to redo everything, and it's just easier when you're doing it consistently.
And depending on your client is how often they can come back to have it done would be based on the sensitivity of the skin, what else are they using at home. I would say the season as well, consider that. Are they traveling somewhere warm? Anything else on that?
I think generally the 4-week mark is a good indication, but then, yeah, there are kind of personal factors also.
I remember one professional contacting me because she had a client that actually, she found out that she did retinol the night before, the week before she had some sort of a laser resurfacing, but she said, no, everything's the same. It can be absolutely a concern. That's why your consultation forms are essential so that you're covering yourself no matter if, and this is a client, this person, she knew this client very well and didn't realize it. Like she said, well, I asked you all these questions. She goes, oh, I didn't think it impacted anything. So don't keep it general. Just remind yourself to ask the specifics because that's unfortunate that this looks so minimal. This looks like it's easy. It looks like it's not a big deal, if you wish, in the public eye, but we know as technicians that it definitely can make a difference as well. Okay, we're going to move into a mask. And while the mask is on, we're going to break into a Q&A. So feel free to use the chat for your questions. Or if you have any comments. I'd love to know where are you tuning in from? Where are you right now? What part of the world are you in? We've got some neighbors around, that's great. Spruce Grove, Alberta, Edmonton, Alberta, Montreal. So right now the mask is a soothing mask. It is from the line Bernard Cassier. It's hydrating. It ensures the microbiome of the skin isn't jeopardized in any way. It keeps that reestablishment in the skin, protects the barrier as well. There's a lot of things not a lot of things, but there's a few things you can add on, like while the mask is on, you could do this. If you wanted to do light therapy for calming an LED, you could as well. The mask is from the Muesli line from Bernard Cassier. So so while the mask is on, we're going to adjust our camera so you can see us both again. And I'm just have my phone here to monitor the chat. So a question we have here was, you were taught to use witch hazel after cleansing. So no, we don't have to do witch hazel after cleansing. The cleansing is suffice of cleaning the skin. Again, check your jurisdiction. It usually is a municipality or a provincial or state regulation. So unfortunately, if that's the case, that's what you have to follow. It's really about having that clean palette of the skin, sterile clean, and that's probably why they're teaching with witch hazel. These things are always changing, I find, too. So we have to, a little closer. There you go. I'll move over so you can see Maylene too. Keeping up with it, always watching, and touch base with your skincare line that you're using, because typically they're on top of these things as well. Any other questions or comments you want to share? There's so many different trainings out there, from online, in person, around the world even. So always just kind of factor in where you're from, where do you live, what are regulations. Keep watching different educational webinars or anything that you can get your hands on to see and keep up with. There's this industry changing all the time, and they're learning as they go as well. Part of the innovation of it all, I guess. Awesome. A lot of questions today. So I would reach out to your brand. You had a question about a brand being used. They should be able to tell you most, I would say most, not all, but most skincares will have protocols in place for every service you can imagine on how to use their product. So I would reach out to them. That's a good question. And then it's safe. If you don't have that in place, ask them what they would recommend, because it's coming from them. When it comes to a brand, well, we feel that they're the experts, it's their brand. They should be telling us how we can use it in our protocols. We're not the scientists, we're not the chemists. We didn't come up with this skincare line or brand. They should be able to answer that. And if the person you're dealing with maybe doesn't know for sure, then ask them, do you know who can answer this question for me? Maybe it needs to go a little higher up. Sometimes salespeople are not educators in this industry, so they don't realize those little technical things that we need to keep in mind. So I would reach out to them. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to dermaplaning, you always want to think about the skin renewal process. How often do we have a new cell produce and then come up to the surface, and I'm just going to be blunt, and it dies? It starts off, gets flat, and becomes dead skin. So that process, I know some people want it done more often because of the hairs, but you always have to think of the barrier of the skin and what it can actually have done to it. So always the barrier of the skin first. I would say on average, it's probably 4 weeks that people are having it done. Sooner is probably more likely too soon. However, if they have thick skin, oily skin, they might be able to tolerate it, but really it's all about the cell renewal process. How often would they be exfoliating? What are they doing at home? What other treatments are you doing on them? And I think that's another thing that just have to keep educating your client on the why behind it. They're only noticing the hair, but they're not realizing that you're exfoliating as well. And some people do it a lot later than that. Some are like months before they come in. And that's okay too. So best season for this is really any time. It's just going to be best. Think about what are the conditions that they're dealing with. Are they having this done? Let's say our model here, Vanessa, is having this done, and this weekend she's going to go skiing. So we have to make sure that we tell them the home care after under any potential environment that they're going to be exposed to for the next few days for sure to a week. But really, this can be done any time of the year. It's all about the barrier of the skin. The less trauma to it, what would impact the barrier, what could change the barrier, as some professionals will do dermaplaning and a chemical peel right after. Um, I don't know why someone would do that. It could be the protocols of the brand is in there. I'm not going to say it's a no, but again, you want to look at the why behind it. Why would you be doing a chemical peel right after dermaplaning? On that note, it's typically because the client likes that feeling, but in the end, are you jeopardizing the barrier of the skin? Then they become ultra sensitive. This has happened to people out there. They reach out, said, I've been doing this dermaplaning on a client for so long, like this probably done 20 times on them. This one time they had adverse effects. The next day they had an issue with it. Well, what's the reason behind it? Was there any medical changes? Any like new medication? Did they change medication? Environment? What do they expose themselves to immediately after and the next day? What do they do before the treatment as well? So if they have autoimmune conditions, that can affect the skin. So that's why that consultation form every single time, you might not have to through it with like a checklist, but you can go through it quickly. And if they say, oh yeah, I used retinol last night, it's like, and it's not even the brand you use, I'd be careful on doing it. And just remember, it's okay to say no to the service. So if you say, you know what, I would rather wait a few days, but what I will do for you is why don't I just do maybe it's a light enzyme peel or no peel, like no exfoliation. And so, you're here. How about if I just bring you into this room if you can? And I'll do LED, I'll put a mask on you. We'll get your skin ready for when you come back. It'll be ready to have that treatment done. I think that's the hard part is we don't want to say no to them, but you always have to say, because in the end, it's you're the professional. It falls on you. So always take pictures before and immediately after. Another story that I can share with you is we had a professional reach out to us and showed us pictures of what it looked like before the treatment, right after the treatment. And the next morning, the client sent in what she looked like, and it wasn't anything to what was done. So when you can zoom in and see what you did, you can see if there's irritation on the skin, if there's any certain redness, a little bit of inflammation. Again, she sent them her pictures to her insurance broker, and they said, no, it's all good. You showed that you didn't do anything after the treatment. It looked fine. So not sure what this person did when they got home. Did they use the wrong skincare at night? So again, really knowing what they're using. In a facial, yeah, you could do, this is kind of like a mini facial. I would be mindful of massaging because you've done an exfoliation. So think of it, if you had shaved your legs, are you going in and massaging that area again? It's probably going to be irritating. So no, probably even more so on the face. So the only thing I would say, if you're going to do massage, think of techniques like pressure massage, maybe a gentle gua sha. Cool stones are really nice, or the stainless steel. Lymphatic drainage, you can do maybe a bigger massage on the neck, the décolleté, the shoulders, the traps, the hands, the arms.
Even the head massage.
Head massage, great idea. Yeah, that's another good one too. And then you do a mask. We always do ourselves here as treatments on our clients. They don't come in for one thing. We always try to do a full facial in a sense, but we adjust massage techniques is the biggest one. And then just because you still want to look at what would make sense to use as a mask, because you don't want to do any strong actives. You don't want to be, so if they're mature skin, you're wanting to do there's AHAs in it, even a little bit is still potential to aggravate. So we always caution more so to let's do something on the sensitive side, because no matter the skin, we're protecting the barrier, and it's a one time. Even if your client is oily, you can look at it and say, well, it's about today, so we're not sending those sebaceous glands on alert saying, oh my God, there's no oil on my skin, especially if you use witch hazel after, on that question that was asked earlier. Now you've stripped the oils of the skin. The body's response naturally is the sebaceous glands are going to secrete quickly, especially if they're oily skin. So if you give it something soothing, ceramides, peptides, like the heavy, rich creams, I wouldn't send them home with it. But for a mask, it's ideal just to keep everything calm. Yes, you could do, if you wanted to do this as an exfoliation in a facial, you can, again, mindful. You want to make sure the client knows that you're basically shaving the vellus hair, because that is what dermaplaning is. The secondary is that it exfoliates, right? The purpose behind dermaplane is typically the vellus hair first. If a client doesn't want the vellus hair touched, then you wouldn't offer dermaplaning. And that's the other thing we do is when we're doing dermaplane, say we're going to put a mask on or whatever we're using, we explain to them, remember, because of the exfoliation side of this is where we want to optimize by giving the skin something soothing and calming and hydrating to the skin. Yes, if you want to rewatch, you will have access to the link. It'll be sent out via email. So any of the watch and learns are sent out once the video is uploaded and technical has been taken care of and everything edits. Then you'll see it on the YouTube channel under watch and learns. But typically it's emailed in a link for access. Typically it's one pass through the skin, because you're kind of overlapping as you move with the blade anyways. Then you go back to check if you missed anything, but you wouldn't want to do the full process again, because it's probably going to be too irritating to the skin. That's when things can go wrong. So the exfoliation is secondary. If you feel that they have thicker skin, could use more exfoliation, then I'd advise them to do it at home in, say, 3 or 4 days later, depending on their skin type or skin conditions. What can they tolerate? So if they're oily skin, thick skin, probably a few days later might be okay. Something gentle, nothing too extreme, especially if it's got the granular in it or stronger acids per se. If they're sensitive skin, I'd be probably waiting at least a week. Thin to sensitive skin, at least 1 week. So think of it when you went back to school and you were learning about exfoliations, how often you should exfoliate. This all is part of that same process. And try to educate your client on the fact that more is not better, because there's so many barriers being jeopardized these days on really young skin too. Thinking more is always better because they're getting their hands on online or the big box stores, and they're picking up stuff that maybe they shouldn't be using, you wouldn't be recommending. However, find a way to help them understand and say, you know what, okay, I can see why you got this, but because of your skin and from what I see, I would recommend this or how to use that to a certain degree. Because we look at it and say, Instagram right now is really good for it. They put up a plan, say on Mondays use retinol, on Tuesday use AHA, on Wednesdays use this, on Thursday, and then you count how many times they're doing a type of an exfoliation, and they're doing it 4 to 6 times a week. It's way too aggressive to the skin. No matter how little the percentages are, you're still exfoliating that often. Great questions. We still have lots of time. We don't want to rush anything. So if you took training, one added little comment, if you took training somewhere and you're not sure, like that's the protocols they showed you. A lot of times you're being trained based on the brands that they're using, which is, of course, that's how it has to happen, right? But if you're not using that brand, then find out from the brand you are using, what's the protocols, what's the steps I should be doing with this, what do you recommend to use? And because you need to work with the brands you have, the, the technique and teaching is kind of the same all around, but what they use, like we have access to, well, I'd say 3 different brands on what to use on them and why we choose what we choose. You heard Maylene, she likes Bernard Cassier because the oil is slip enough, but her hands aren't sliding off the face. She feels more secure with her hands. Again, I know some that use a different oil and it's a heavier oil, thicker oil, and they love it because it glides really fast, but they have to put a gauze on their finger on the other hand to really support and pull the skin as they work. Then you're removing the oil, so you're probably going to have to add more again. So there's pluses and minuses to it as well. And because this is actually on YouTube Live, if there's no more questions, give us a comment of what you thought of this webinar today, because we're trying a few different ways of doing this. We have more to come. We're going to run these throughout the year as well. So if you're obviously you received an email about this webinar, it's the same link to register. You'll see the future ones coming up as well. We do try to plan them about at least 2 in advance. So there will be one coming up again in April. So March will be our next one. I know some of you, we probably haven't met, especially if you're not in Edmonton, maybe via email or telephone call. But now you get some faces behind those calls and emails too. So SPF should be used all year round, to be honest with you. It is the biggest aging factor, the biggest thing that's going to create issues for the skin. And that's one thing to talk to your clients about, is especially if they're doing all these treatments and they're using these products, but they're not protecting their skin. And that includes sun tanning in the fake beds, the tanning booths. SPF definitely to be used. It's going to protect the skin from the UVA and UVB. There's even some products out there that are protecting the skin from blue light. Blue light from these devices that we're all around is the biggest impact right now on the skin. So some of them have like a filter in their product for that as well. Excellent, thank you. Again, when you're using different modalities, I'd be mindful to the purpose of why you're doing this. So mixing them can be too aggressive. And the whole point of dermaplaning, as I mentioned, was the vellus hair exfoliation. If you're adding something else to this, you have to be mindful to what you're doing in the skin to why. So derma rolling, microneedling, again, that's a different modality, a different treatment. So I think you want to allow the skin to do its thing after what we just did today, wait a few days to a week, and then offer another modality to it. More is not always better. It's safe to have laser hair removal done on the face and dermaplaning, but not at the same time. You're going to need time. Depending on the laser treatment, you would need to know which one they had done and find out how long they should be waiting before doing dermaplaning. It's just you need the skin to heal after that as well. It's all about time. Sometimes we want to do so much in one session I think if we just take a step back a little bit and say, you know what, this is why I'm going to do this for you, educate them, bring it back to the foundation of healthy skin and what we're going to do with it. Why do we do what we do? I think there's just so much noise out there with all the different things we can do. We think we can create and make our own. It's not that you can't do that. It's just watch what's the focus of the treatment? Why are we doing it? What are the results we're hoping to get out of it? And ideally, you just have to tell them. Sometimes people will say, oh, well, I had microneedling, or sorry, I had dermaplaning and a sweep of glycolic. Why can't you do it? Well, I'm not going to do it because of, as we talked about, that's an exfoliation. It's probably going to irritate the skin. I would want to wait a few days because what we don't know is under the skin causing that inflammation. We're not with a microscope looking at the skin and see how it's reacting. What does it happen the next day? How long does it stay in that state? And then all of a sudden the skin becomes intolerant to it. So, for example, you maybe are okay eating bread, and then you're eating bread all the time, no problem. Then one day you have an issue. It's like, oh, I guess I can't eat bread anymore, or dairy is another one. It's all about our body. Our body works in the same manner. So our skin is the same thing. It's an organ. So it will eventually say, okay, you've done enough, I'm done. And then it reacts to things, even though they've been using that product for years, let's say, or that brand for a long time. So just being super mindful of that, I think, is essential. Hopefully I'm answering your questions. You know what? I don't know. I'm not sure if I know who that is. Alex. It's going on to a second line hiding here from Hansi Fan. I'll have to look that up. I'm intrigued. If you can tell me more. So probably if they're getting the laser hair removal done, they're not coming in again based on what growth cycle the hair is in. That's the other reason they say a protocol time between laser treatments. It's all about when they can get the hair in the growing state. So it's important at the very beginning. The dermaplaning, I guess if they're having it in certain areas, the other thing is can you stay out of that area and only work on the peach fuzz area? That's the other option you could do so that they feel like they're completely cleared off. I would think 2 weeks after would be fine. But again, use your judgment and look at the skin and how it is. If they're still healing from it, don't go over the areas that they had the laser done. Ah, okay, it's a business content for business. Excellent. Thank you for sharing that.
You want to show the blade removal? The blade removal?
Yeah, you know what we'll do while we're waiting, if there's any more questions before we run out of time. Maylene's going to show you how she removes the blade. Now you should have a little, it's much better to have this little disposable box that's meant for the blades. Instead of you taking it off with your hands, it's much safer. So she's just going to show you how to do that.
Make sure it's lined up. So I just kind of stick it into this area. There's a little opening here where your edge of the blade rests, and then you press down. Kind of have to do this motion, and then it just snaps off.
And then it's ready to be disposed of. It's just like your Sterex boxes, same thing. So just for the blades, it stores, I forgot how many in here. There's quite
I think
100, I think, or something like that. It's a lot. Usually you can find kits like that. They can be pretty inexpensive. We're actually based in Edmonton, Alberta, but we definitely do a lot of, whether it's educational or product knowledge as a distributor as well, through across Canada as well. So if you ever need us, we're here. Yeah, I think probably about 100 blades is what we're thinking. Once it's closed, you can't open it, so we've never counted it.
Mhm.
But we still just keep filling it up. And to stay informed with us is just if you subscribe, then you'll always get our newsletters. The thing is, keep in mind if you unsubscribe, then you'll lose probably majority of the communication with us. So it's a mix between our webinars like this, from our distribution of what's going on with the different brands we carry. So if it serves you, read it. If it doesn't, just move on and just watch for the newsletters that you do want to pay attention to. The other thing is Instagram is a great one to watch. Well, any of the social media platforms that we're on, because we do show there what's happening as well. Okay. If you have questions after, feel free to send us a message. You can just respond to the email even, info@beautycult.ca. If you want to contact me directly, it's educator@beautycult.ca. Be happy to answer your questions. Or you can always comment below in the YouTube comments under the video, or Messenger, or through the chat on Instagram, however you feel you want to reach out. We're always here for you guys. I'll check one more time before we end our live today. For acne skin, no, unless it's a one area. You have to avoid any breakout and any healing going on, because that blade will cut the surface and you might expose the skin. So no breakouts at all. Done people that have had an area, we let them know we can't go over that area. So you're going to be left with the vellus hair in those areas. So it's up to the client. I'd let them know and they can decide whether or not to have it done, but it's definitely not safe for acne skin at all. Thanks for the questions. Great questions, you guys, and comments. Appreciate it. It's a little different for us doing it this way because we don't get to see you or hear you. All right. Oh, so if there's scarring, then I wouldn't call it acne then, because to me, acne means it's inflamed, it's breaking out. But if there's scarring and there's no breakouts, it's completely healed and left with scars, yes, you can. Just know that, well, one, if it's a scar, then there's probably going to be no vellus hair in the area because it's scar tissue. But you can go over it. Just be mindful that you're not going to maneuver the blade. It needs to stay flat and get what you can, even if it's indented as well. Okay, so always just flat. So if they have a pustule, then I'd say stay out of that spot, that area. If they have redness to the skin, if you maybe look under the mag lamp and see if there's any scabbing at all, even the small ones, you don't want to be over top, because that blade will cut that off and they'll be left with an open wound. So even on Vanessa, I know that there's a couple spots that she actually just went around the area. You can get really close, just work it in a circle aspect around if it's one. Mm-hmm. Okay, well, we want to respect your time. If again, like we mentioned, any questions, feel free to reach out to us. You can respond by the email if you prefer, or give us a call too, or through social media. We always take messages that way. And our tech team will forward any of those to us, and we're here to help you guys. So thanks for joining us today, and we look forward to seeing you next time. And keep learning and growing and have fun. That's the important part. Bye for now.
Bye.